multiplicative property of equality in fractions. That was a fun word. So with this one, we're going to review fractions really quick because that seems to always be kind of a topic of stress for a lot of students. So there is a numerator and a denominator. We can think of the numerator as multiplication and the denominator as division. To solve an equation, we need to undo what is being done to the variable. So that was a very quick review. We have a numerator, which is the top, and a denominator, which is the bottom. And this is a very simple way of thinking of a fraction. The top, the numerator, is multiplication, and the bottom, which is the denominator, is division. That's literally what a fraction stands for. So it makes it really easy if you can kind of remember that idea. So there are two methods to solve a fraction. And I'm going to show you both methods. So when there's a fraction multiplied by a variable, this is undone by using the multiplicative inverse or the reciprocal. So that's our first method. So first I'm just going to show you, I'm going to remind you, see, this is multiplication, this is division. So to undo multiplication, I would divide by 2. To undo the division of 5, I would multiply by 5. So when I say the reciprocal, that means I'm flipping the fraction over. So you can see that happen here. So here's 5, here's 2. So I'm flipping it over because now I'm multiplying by 5, dividing by 5. Multiplying by 2 up here, I'm dividing by 2 down here. So I'm doing the opposites of both at the exact same time. So that's why this one's, one of the very legitimate methods that we use all the time. So we can cross cancel these because if I divide a number by itself, it cancels down to 1. So v is left all by itself. Now on this side, I do want to make sure that I'm paying attention because I'm multiplying across the top. So 4, technically it has a 1 under it, right? Any number that we see that we don't see a fraction with, just a whole number, it has a 1 under it. So 4 gets multiplied by 5, and then we can divide the whole thing by 2. So we have 4 times 5 is 20, divided by 2 is 10. So v must be 10 to make this equation true. So now we have method number 2. We can turn the fraction into a decimal. If you don't like dealing with the fractions, you're always welcome to turn it into a decimal. The only time I'd be careful about this method is if you get a decimal that's not terminating and not repeating. Even a repeating decimal, because you're going to have to round. So I'd be a little careful. If it's not terminating, I wouldn't use this method, honestly, just because if the computer hasn't asked you to do any rounding, then it's probably, especially Alex.com, can be a little picky about the answers it's willing to accept. If it hasn't told you to do any rounding and you do rounding, it's going to mark it wrong. So just be careful about that. So turning the fraction into a decimal and then undoing the multiplication using the inverse operation of division. So this is very much so like how we were solving equations in the last couple of lessons. So we can go 2 divided by 5. So 2 divided by 5, remember that's what this means. That bar means divide. So that equals 0.4. Remember if you type this into a calculator, you need to do 2 divided by 5. It matters how you type that in. If you type it in 5 divided by 2, you're going to get 2.5 instead of 0.4. So pay attention to how you type it in. The numerator, division symbol, denominator. So we had 0.4. So we have 0.4v equals 4. So I just replaced the fraction with its decimal form. And so now 0.4 or 4/10 is being multiplied by v. So I can just divide both sides by that 0.4, 4/10. Any number divided by itself cancels. I forgot to do the little cross out thing here, but 0.4 divided by 0.4 is 1. So v drops down, and 4 divided by 0.4 is 10. So literally when I'm doing this division, I'm saying if I had 40 cents, because that also, I like to do stuff with money, I have $4.40, and I want to know how many times does the 40 cents go into $4. So if you actually did, 40 cents 10 times, you'd get $4. So kind of a little silly connection there with money. All right, let's practice this a couple more times just so we can see it a few more times here. So we have solving for u. So we have 2/9, or 2u divided by 9 equals 10. I can separate this into 2/9 and the u could be next to it over here. So I can kind of completely separate the fraction there if I wanted to. So this one I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. So you can see I flipped it over. 9's on top, 2's on the bottom. So now they cancel out. and I have u equals, on this side it's 10 times 9. I'm multiplying, and then I'll divide. So 10 times 9 is 90, and now I'm going to divide by 2, and I get 45. Again, I could have turned that into a decimal. The only problem, again, that I'm bringing up with this one, and I know right away, if I'm dividing by any multiple of 3, so 3, 6, 9, 12, anything that can divide by 3, I'm going to get a repeating decimal. That's actually when we practice how to turn a repeating decimal into a fraction, it has to do with nines. So anytime that I see that it's going to be divisible by 3 or 9, but 3 works as well, it's going to be a repeating decimal. So this one I would not turn into a decimal. I would do it this way. Just make sure I'm not rounding anything. All right, so we're going to go down, let's see, 2/9. So I do show you the repeating decimal part just like this. So you can see it because it turns into 0.2 repeating, and then I divide by 0.2 on both sides, and I get 45, but I had to round it. So without a repeating decimal, go out at least 5 or 6 decimal places and then round it. So just make sure that you're moving it out far enough so that when you get this answer, so if I go out 0.22222, like 5 2s there, when I'm dividing, I'll get 45.00000 something, some decimal, and I know, okay, I'm just going to round that off to 45. If you just do 10 divided by 0.2, you might not get the right number there. So just, again, be very careful about that idea because it can kind of get you a little messed up on the rounding if you're not paying attention. All right. Oh, let me back up. So down here, they gave us a decimal already, so we don't have to convert this one into a decimal. If you really wanted to, you can convert it into a fraction. I've never had students take that route, but you can if you want to. We did go through a couple lessons on how to go from fraction to decimal and decimal to fraction. So if you wanted to, you very well could. But with this one, we're having 2 times y equals 5.12. So I want to undo this multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. 2 divided by 2 cancels out. Any number divided by itself cancels down to 1. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that variable all by itself. So y equals 2.52 because that's what 5.12 or 5.12 divided by 2 is. All right, let's go over here to this guy. So we have another fraction being multiplied by y this time, or by a variable. This time the variable is y. And it's a negative fraction. So when I multiply by the reciprocal, I want to make sure I bring that negative. I don't want to leave the negative with the y because then I'm going to have negative y equals. Well, I don't want to know what negative y equals. I want to know what just y is. So I want to make sure that I bring that negative with the reciprocal. It truly doesn't matter if you have the negative with the 9 or the negative with the 4 or the negative in the middle, as long as there's only one negative there on each fraction. My cross canceling didn't quite line up, so I'll fix that. That was supposed to cross off the 4s and the 9s. The y does get left behind. That's not being crossed off. On this side, I'm going to have negative 9 times negative 24. So you can see that up here, divided by 4. So we're going to multiply first. 2 negatives make a positive, and 9 times 24 is 216. And then I'm going to divide by 4, and that gets me 54. All right. So I do show you the fraction again. I know right away because it's a 9 that I'm going to end up with a repeating decimal. So when I go through and I do this, so it's negative 24 equals negative 0.4 repeating times y. I'm going to divide by that repeating decimal. And remember, when you do this, you want to go negative 24 divided by negative 0.4. Go out at least like 4 or 5 decimal places. I said 5 or 6, so just go out quite a few so that you know that it's going to round, because then you'll see the number 54.000, and then you'll have some other numbers that you can just account to the fact that you rounded. Okay. All right, so this last one, we have a decimal again. So this time it's 6.4 equals w over 4, or divided by 4. Remember, whenever I see fraction bar, it means division. That's all fractions mean. It's a number divided by another number. So multiplication on top, division on the bottom. So if I know I'm dividing by 4, I'm just simply going to multiply by 4 on both sides, because any number divided by itself, this is multiplying by 4, this is dividing by 4, that's going to cancel out. It's going to become 1, and w just gets left by itself on the right side here. And then all I have to do is multiply 4 times 6.4, and I get 25.6 equals W. All right, so that was just practicing the multiplicative property with fractions. I hope that helped, and I will see you in the next video.